Okay, well, I'm going to sign off. You guys have a great class.
Thank you, Laura.
And when the
Appreciate it.
recording is done, I'll send it to you guys, okay?
Thanks a lot, Laura.
All
Appreciate you.
right.
Thank you
Have a
again.
good one. Have a good class, everyone.
Thank you.
We'll be starting at 12 o'clock straight up. Okay, I've got 12 o'clock Apple time. We're going to get this started. Well, we used to pack the room, Justin, and we used to bring pizza over there. Do you think there's a correlation between attendance and food?
I'm thinking that we might have to do something local so we can feed them as well down the road. That's a great recommendation.
Well, Laura had said that she'd be open to more of those dates if we wanted to plan something in 2026. That's probably a good idea. And people will be joining you guys, but we're going to get started. We want to honor your time, respect your time, and we're going to get started on this. Justin and I have been doing this. It seems like a lifetime already. It's only been what, 15 years? But yeah, since 2021, A-Team came on board for the state of California, and that's who our client is. And we do this contractually. It's part of our responsibility is to train agents like yourselves, as well as buyers, on this particular niche in real estate. And we're hoping that in so doing, it will increase your comfort zone and you desire to start selling some of this product. This is as far as I'm concerned, I think it's one of the easiest sources of making money in the business of real estate. It's absolutely incredible. I'm going to ask you, if you will, to hold your questions or type them in the chat. We'll look out for each other. Justin and I are sharing the content today. We cover a lot of material. If we stop for questions too quickly, it could eat up a lot of time. So just type them in the chat. If there's a question that's unanswered at the end, we'll probably have time to have you unmute and ask those live if you'd like, okay? So without further ado, we will get rolling here. Well, I think we will. There we go. Okay, what is a HUD home? This is a single family arena. It's the 1 to 4 unit arena that we're in. This was acquired by HUD as a result of foreclosure. These properties are offered for sale at fair market value. There is appraisals that are achieved as well as broker price opinions and other valuations before they determine what price they're going to hit the market at. They vary in terms of price, location, and condition. HUD homes are for sale throughout the state, actually throughout the United States, and some are move-in ready, others are not. Regardless of the condition, all these properties are sold strictly as is. So we got to understand what as is means. There's no warranties, guarantees, or representations, FHA insurable or otherwise. There's no repairs done on these properties. With the exception, they're made safe, secure, and in what HUD considers marketable condition. And buyers are allowed and encouraged to get an independent home inspection. That is huge, and you'll learn more shortly. Buyers typically do not acquire any bills or liens, so we transfer these properties free and clear of any liens or encumbrances. Okay, the contractors that are involved. There's HUD, the Homeownership Center in Santa Ana at the top. Then there's the nationwide MCM, the Mortgage Compliance Manager, as well as the Field Service Manager And the asset manager, A team, that's who our client is that we as local listing brokers answer to. The MCM is there's one nationwide contractor, and that happens to be ISN out of Oklahoma City, and they handle it all. Their responsibility is from top to bottom, from cradle to grave. That's their responsibility. Then there's the FSM. In California, we have Guardian Asset Management. And they identify, once a property comes back to HUD, the FSM goes out to the property, they provide maintenance and preservation services, they inspect the property, they do securing of the property, they perform very minor cosmetic enhancements or repairs, mostly in the safety arena, and they provide ongoing maintenance. And the asset manager, A team, which is our client, they manage and market the sales process and properties. They ensure properties are accurately and competitively priced. They make sure that HUD achieves the highest net return. Their goal is to minimize holding time. They review and award HUD bids slash purchase contracts. They oversee the closing and accounting of funds, and they provide customer service and measure client satisfaction. The local listing brokers, Justin and myself, and others. Our responsibilities are we get these properties listed in the MLS. We put a sign in the yard. We provide routine inspections and reports to our client. We perform BPOs and give pricing advice. We handle customer service, and we provide informational services like what we're doing today with you. We provide wide market exposure on the HUD sales process and properties, and we deliver the EM check to the closing agent upon contract execution. We actually perform monthly agent training classes as well as buyer training classes as well. Okay, the sales process. How do you sell a HUD home? You'll need a NAID, your broker will need a NAID registration. Any licensed agent can sell a HUD home. Brokerages, not individual selling agents, must register with HUD. So your broker has to have a NAID registration. When the brokerage registers with HUD, the brokerage will receive a NAID number. All that NAID means is name and address ID, which will be used by all agents in that brokerage. This is the process for the NAID registration. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because Justin will show you on the website where to go to actually obtain that NAID registration. Who can buy a HUD home? Anyone. Buyers will fall into one of three categories. There's owner-occupants. Number two, there's investors. And then there's government agencies and HUD-approved nonprofits. The buyer types. There's owner-occupants, which are given a priority bidding period during what's called the exclusive listing period. Buyers agreeing to occupy the house for at least 1 year, and they cannot participate in HUD sales for 2 years after that purchase. There's investors. These are able to bid during what's called the extended listing period. So once the property's been listed exclusively for the correct amount of time, it'll roll over and automatically become extended, at which time both owner-occupants and investors can bid during the extended period. On investors, there's no restriction on quantity purchased, and they have a different bidding cycle than owner-occupants. We'll talk about that. Some of the benefits of buying HUD homes. HUD has pre-agreed to pay up to 3% of the buyer's closing costs. You've got to ask for it in the contract, and you've got to put the full dollar amount. Don't put 3 down there thinking you're going to get 3%. You'll get a $3 credit, and it's for owner-occupants only. Your costs, your buyer may need that because the costs are going to be higher on purchasing a HUD home. HUD virtually pays for nothing, almost nothing. Normal costs that are split, escrow fees and things like that between buyer and seller, not so on HUD. Buyer is going to bear the entire costs. So you may need to ask for that credit. If it's a condo or a townhome, project approval is not required. Now this is only on HUD homes. So any condo that's been foreclosed on that reverts to HUD in a project, in a complex. Normally, if you want to get FHA financing, you'd have to make sure that complex is FHA approved, correct? Not so on HUD Homes. The complex could have lost the HUD approval because of high HOA delinquency rates, high tenant occupancy ratios, maybe litigation is going on in the complex. Any of those factors will prevent the complex from being FHA approved. Doesn't matter. If HUD takes back a property in a condo complex, they will offer FHA financing regardless if the complex is FHA approved or not. Since they own the property, they certainly can waive their own rule, and they do. It's a huge, huge benefit. Okay, the IE finance type. You have the option of doing an FHA standard loan 203B with what's called escrow repair. This is a workaround to deal with those relative under 10,000 total dollar volume of repairs that your appraiser may call out. Could be missing a water heater, could be broken windows, things like that, under $10,000 total. And that money is borrowed in addition to your purchase price for repairs that will be done after closing. The lender controls those funds. Once they're inspected and approved, he will release those funds to the contractors. If there's any unused portion, that'll be used to reduce the principal balance of the loan. It'll never be a direct credit to the borrower. Next benefit, there's an owner-occupant priority bidding period. And that varies from property to property. We'll talk more about that. That's a huge benefit because that keeps even today, these flippers have voracious appetites and they're trying to snatch up everything they can, as you guys well know, and they're usually offering all cash. So it's really hard to compete with those cash buyers. The owner-occupant, the exclusive bidding period will prevent that from happening on HUD Homes. Another benefit is there's a real low EMD. The earnest money deposit on HUD Homes, any purchase price of $250,000 or greater, all we want to see is $2,000. It's got to be a cashier's check or a U.S. postal money order. Either one of those two will work. Either one of those two only will work, and only $2,000. In other words, if you try to impress HUD with $20,000 or $30,000 deposit, we have to send you back to the bank to swap that off for $2,000. There is what's called a Good Neighbor Next Door program in certain areas for certain eligible buyers. We'll talk more about that shortly. All homes are listed at hudhomestore.gov nationwide. I would not recommend going there yet. Let Justin guide you. There's some lookalike sites that may trick you. All they're trying to do is to duplicate HUD and try to capture your information. So just sit tight. We'll bring up the site in Justin's portion. There's a real quick response time for bids. Typically within 24 hours of the bidding deadline, you'll know whether your buyers bought that property or not. FHA 203K owner-occ rehab loan is an option. As local listing brokers, we love this. I don't know how many of you have done a 203K loan. We love them because we have a lot less fallout when we see these loans being used. Especially in a competitive bidding environment, it's still common to see contracts being accepted that are above list price. Of course, that appraisal's got to come in at that number. If it doesn't come in, the buyer has to come up with the difference in cash. And on normal transactions, the seller could, as another option, the seller could reduce the price to match, or you could split the difference somehow. Not so on HUD Homes. HUD will not reduce that price. So if you end up with a low appraisal, the buyer has only the option of coming up with the difference in cash or canceling and then rebidding. Now, if they do that, then they stand a chance of losing the property because everyone's going to be bidding again. So a 203K is a great option. It allows your buyer to add value, future value, after close of escrow. Fix the property up the way they want it done. You could even add square footage. You can add bedrooms and bathrooms. You can add units if the property is zoned correctly, up to 4 units. So it's really, really flexible. It allows your buyer to look for the 1 or 2 bedroom homes in the neighborhood they want, with the idea of possibly expanding that property, fixing it up to match what they would like to end up with. So we have a lot less fallout because of appraisal problems. It's appraisals are coming in based on future value rather than current value. And did you know if FHA financing is used, termite inspection treatments paid by HUD, the FSM will only clear the active infestation. So it doesn't matter to HUD how you buy these properties, whether it's cash, line of credit, conventional, VA, FHA, makes no difference to HUD. There's only one thing that matters to HUD, and that's which offer gives us the highest net cash in our pocket. That equals the winning bidder. But if you use FHA financing, they throw in a couple of perks. They'll automatically handle the termite work. And on homes built before 1978, they'll automatically order a lead-based paint inspection and pay for remediation up to $4,000, and it does not affect your buyer's net. That's only on FHA financing. These are fully sealed bids, you guys. There's full bid transparency. You never have to worry about an unscrupulous agent using your bid to advise their client and outbid you. It's not going to happen on HUD Homes. We as listing brokers find out who the winning bidder is and the terms the same time the winning bidder finds out. Okay, the integrity of this system is impeccable. You will never get beat on HUD Homes. Okay, HUD special programs. Properties that are eligible for HUD special programs will list in what's called a lottery round for 7 days before they're listed for sale to the general public. There's 2 types of lottery round bidders. There's GNND and HUD-approved nonprofits, government agencies. So information on becoming a HUD-approved nonprofit is available at HUD.gov, okay? They have to be approved by HUD. Your buyer will have to be your investor will have to be involved with this process. The GNND eligibility will be indicated on the listing, okay? The Good Neighbor Next Door program. They're designed to enhance communities by offering a discount on HUD homes to firefighters, EMTs, police officers, and teachers. Once the bid period arrives, a name is pulled from the hat, and that lucky buyer has a chance of closing escrow at 50% off the property list price. It's a huge deal. There's a $100 down payment. The property must be located in what's called a designated revitalization area. The buyer must agree to live in the property for at least 3 years. Buyer nor spouse may have owned title to property in the last 12 months before submitting the bid. And once you've hit this, you cannot buy again. Bidder nor spouse cannot ever participate in the GNND program. So the bidding on these are a little different. On normal HUD properties, you can bid at list price, above list price, or below list price. Makes no difference. Remember, how are they going to determine who the successful bidder is? Which bid will give us the highest net cash in our pocket? On this particular product type, the GNND, it's different. Everyone offers 100% of the list price. You can utilize financing or cash. On FHA financing, on the GNND, you must qualify for the contract, the entire contract amount. So even though they have a chance of getting 50% off, they have to qualify for the full amount. You can also finance your customary costs, closing costs, and your commission, because HUD will not pay your commission on this product type. The GNND, the buyer must pay. Okay. Should not be too hard to get your buyer to pay your commission based on the full list price, not the discounted amount, if you're going to get them that property for half off. Bidding on HUD homes, the process itself. Who can sell a HUD home? Virtually any broker who's registered with HUD or an agent employed by a HUD registered broker. An aide is required to submit the bid, but it's not required to show the HUD home. The broker and agent must also register to bid at hudhomestore.gov. The HUD registered broker or agent must submit a bid on behalf of an owner occupant, investor, or good neighbor next door purchaser. Registered nonprofits and government entities can submit bids without the use of a broker or agent. I'm going to skip through the NAID registration because Justin will cover that. This will all be coming up on the screen in just a little while. How do I show a HUD home? Homes are all vacant. We have a standard Supra lockbox on each home. If the keys are ever found missing, please call us. We'll run a set out there right away. Please note that all purchasers must be accompanied by a state licensed broker or agent when viewing any HUD home. Back in the old days, prior to 15 years ago, Gold and Feather had the contract, and we would give HUD keys to our investors and let them go view all these properties on their own. Can't do that anymore. You must accompany your buyer, whether they're investors or whether they're owner occupants. All showings are still subject to COVID-19 orders, recommendations, guidance, guidelines, and CDC and local health mandates are still in effect. Do you need a pre-approval letter to submit a bid? Yes, please. Be sure you've got pre-qual letter or pre-approval letter. If it's cash sale, make sure you've got proof of cash, and please have that documentation prior to placing your bid. It's extremely important for agents to pre-qualify their buyers prior to submitting a bid. Ensure that you have your buyers pre-approved by a reputable lender. If it's cash buyers, ensure you have proof of the funds sourced. Okay. Agents should be aware of the PCR, the property condition report, and disclosure documents on the addendums tab, and Justin will show you where that's at shortly. Agents should only submit bids for buyers that have toured the property. We can't have contingent upon inspection type offers. This will provide the buyer a visual representation of the home's condition. What needs to be included in the pre-qual or pre-approval letter? It's got to be printed on your lender's letterhead. It's got to be dated within the past 30 days. It's got to include your full buyer's name, the amount of the loan being pre-qualified or pre-approved, and the lender's contact information and signature. If a buyer would like to cancel their bid for unsatisfactory inspection, they must realize that their EMD is at risk, as HUD homes are not contingent on the inspection. They should also be aware that they will need to provide a copy of the inspection and circle all unsatisfactory items that were not previously disclosed. If the unsatisfactory items were previously disclosed, their EMD will be forfeited. So if there's some surprise that came out of your inspection, circle that, get it to us. We'll get it to HUD. We'll try to help you get your money back, your deposit back. Selling agents should be aware of the HUD's forfeiture and refund policy. Agents and buyers should be made aware that repairs are not allowed prior to close of escrow, even in the case of vandalism. If the buyers request a credit for the damage, they should be aware they are reviewed on a case-by-case basis and are not always granted. This is real life. Oftentimes we'll have maybe a water heater will pop up missing. The buyer will ask for that to be replaced. It's not going to happen. I've never seen it happen on a HUD home. I have seen on rare occasion maybe a $300 credit. That's not guaranteed. You can ask for it. We'll see how they respond. The buyer will have the option then of either moving forward and closing or canceling, or implementing the IE financing and have that work done after close of escrow. Overbidding with FHA financing continues to be an issue. We encourage buyers to submit their bid based on what they believe to be the appropriate market value for the property. However, please be aware that the purchase price for all finance transactions must be supported by the FHA as-is appraised value of the property. Please note that this differs from a standard real estate sale in which the buyer may renegotiate the purchase price based on the appraised value. If the buyer wishes to renegotiate, the contract must be canceled and the property will then be placed back on the market, available to all bidders. So we talked about this. This is the process in writing. Overbidding with conventional financing. The buyer's lender will order a new appraisal. However, the appraised value must meet the purchase price, or the buyer will need to come up with the difference in cash between the appraised value and the purchase price. Okay, property listing codes. This is Greek to you right now, but it's HUD's way. We'll walk through these terms. They're very simple. There's F, which is flood zone. And these are all going to be shown on the website, which Justin will take you to here shortly. HOA is obvious. That's a homeowner association. LBP, lead-based paint. Properties built before 1978 will contain an addendum that needs to accompany the contract. The LBP stabilization. Stipulations for HUD to complete an LBP assessment are three things. If it's built before 1978, it's an owner-occupant utilizing FHA financing. If all those three, though, those conditions are met, then the FSM will order a lead-based paint inspection, and HUD has pre-agreed to pay up to $4,000 for stabilization or remediation. Anything that exceeds $4,000 at HUD's sole discretion, you may cancel the sales contract and receive all your money back, or allow the financing to change to 203K conventional or 203K streamlined if it's less than $10,000 total. Please review the LBP addendum with the buyer before placing your bid. FHA financing codes. IN is as good as it gets. These are the cream puffs. These are fully insurable. They meet FHA 203B standards with no obvious repairs to ensure the FHA loan to the buyer. Then there's the IE. These are insurable with escrow holdback. They're eligible for 203B, but there's repairs needed $10,000 or less. So relatively minor repairs. Then there's the UI. And both those two top types are more owner-occupant friendly. The UI is the uninsurable. These are more investor-friendly properties. These have more extensive repairs. This is where we see the structurally damaged properties, the mold infested, the burnouts. These have some serious damages, but it could also be when a property gets to be about 100 years old, HUD says we're done. They classify it as uninsurable, but it may still be eligible for 203K. Insurable with escrow holdback. The repair escrow only applies when you're using FHA financing. It's added to the mortgage, and the sales price stays the same. You can borrow up to $10,000 to handle these lender-required repairs after close of escrow. The lender is responsible for accumulating the repair total, verifying that a licensed contractor is being used, and they determine the final repair amounts. No repairs prior to closing, please. That will get your transaction canceled quicker than you know what to do with, please. Don't try to go in there and help the buyer or the seller by doing those repairs yourself. We buy these properties every week. When we see a change, we have to report that to our client. I've heard some horror stories where agents have installed full kitchens that were missing for their buyer prior to close of escrow, only to find out they put their buyer at risk of canceling that contract and losing all that money. So be careful. If there's a problem, please talk to us as local listing brokers. We'll help you find a solution. Bidding periods. Properties are listed daily as they become available. The lottery properties are included in the special programs, and then there's the general market listings, which are all others. These are sealed bidding or exclusive bidding periods. The bids accumulate during that bidding period, and they're reviewed the day after the close of this period. Timelines are stated. Depends on the property type. There is daily bidding or extended bidding that takes place after that bidding period ends, within every 24-hour period. So every day, HUD will analyze the bids that came in, and make a decision. Do we keep the property on the market, or do we accept it? So the bidding periods, we're going to get into that. The lottery round period, listings are listed for 7 days before they hit the general market. And they're only for government agencies, nonprofits, and GNNDs. And then there's the general market listing. The insured or the insured with repair escrow. Those are the first two types I mentioned. They're more owner occupant friendly, and there's a 15-day owner occupant exclusive bidding period. Only owner occupants may submit bids during that first 15 days. So the bids accumulate for the first 10 days, sealed. Day 11, bids are reviewed. If there's an acceptable bid, we open escrow. If there's not, it continues for 5 more days on a daily bidding basis, exclusively for owner occupants. On day 16, it rolls over to extended, at which time investors can submit bids as well. The uninsured, these are more investor friendly and have a shorter owner occupant bidding period exclusively, okay? Only 5 days exclusively sealed for owner occupants. On day 6, investors can start bidding. I said closing costs are going to be higher on your HUD purchases, and that's true. These are the two lines that you control besides the purchase price. Line 5, HUD has pre-agreed to pay up to 3% for closing costs, and you can ask for that full 3%, or you can ask for less than that 3%, a portion down to 0, up to you. And your commission, you can play with your commission with your broker's permission. HUD has pre-agreed to pay you up to 3% commission. You don't have to. You could reduce that slightly to give your buyer a little bit of an edge. So the purchase price and line 5 and 6A affect the net to HUD. Closing costs paid by HUD, I told you there's not much. They prorate property taxes and any special assessments such as HOA fees and utility bills, condo or HOA transfer fee if applicable, and the cost to provide those documents if it's paid in advance. Make sure you've got prior approval if you want to get reimbursed. Minimum commissions is not going to probably be applicable in our area. Typically, our area will be full 3% of list price. Additional notes about bidding: bids can be submitted 24/7, but are not reviewed on federal holidays or weekends. Bids submitted on Friday will be reviewed on Monday. Unless Monday's a holiday, then it rolls over to Tuesday. Bidding deadline is 10 o'clock Pacific time, 10 p.m. Pacific time daily, Monday through Friday, that is. There's no time preference for bidding. A buyer may only submit one bid per property during the Friday, Saturday, Sunday timeframe in those days, if those days all fall in the same bidding period. The Friday, Saturday, Sunday bids are considered in the same bid grouping. Holiday bids are grouped with the previous day's bid. Winning bids are selected automatically by HUD system. If a team receives 2 acceptable bids, which are the exact same amount, the bid will be selected in the order it was submitted. So it doesn't matter when you submit your bid, as long as you get it in before the deadline. But if there's a tie, the order it was received will give priority. If you place a bid you wish to withdraw, you must cancel the bid before the day's bid deadline. Bid cancellations. Reason for canceling: failure to remit a contract, failure to submit an accurate contract package, in which case the EM will be returned to the selling agent by the listing broker, or agent and buyer cancels voluntarily. If that's the case, there's a bid cancellation form sent to the selling agent to be submitted to the closing agent for release of funds. Checking bid results. On the bid deadline, all offers are reviewed and then accepted, rejected, or countered. You will be notified by email if your bid is accepted, and the information will be posted on HUDHomestore.gov under your bidder functions. Justin will take you there just a little bit. The local listing broker is available to assist you with submitting your contract, EMD issues, and buyer select closing attorney information. Counter offers. All offers within an acceptable range of the threshold will be countered with the final acceptable net to HUD. Because your bid may not be the only offer countered, please respond with your best offer. Don't counter with a counter. Earnest money, $250,000 or greater, $2,000, no more, no less. The selling agent's responsible for delivering the earnest money on all awarded bids to the listing broker. The listing broker will only accept certified funds and will verify the correct amount of earnest money and the name of the payee. The payee is always your escrow. The listing broker will ensure the earnest money is remitted within 2 business days of contract execution to the closing agent. May be entirely or partially forfeited or refunded if the contract fails to close. The specifics are outlined in the forfeiture and extension policy. This is the great part. We used to have to run contracts down to our client. It's all done automatically by e-signature now. When an agent places a bid, additional information is required that was not previously needed. Please make sure all information is accurate to avoid any delay. Read all the instructions and follow up in a timely manner. Read all the emails from DocuSign, HUD Home Store, A-Team, and us as local listing brokers to ensure a smooth process. This is a portion of Justin's presentation. Bid accepted. Agent will be notified by A-Team that the client has been awarded the bid. Agent must then submit certified funds to the local listing broker within 2 business days of that bid acceptance. The local listing broker will then complete the earnest money received receipt and send it to A-Team Realty, which will trigger A-Team Realty to email a link for the selling agent to review the online contract package prior to it being sent to the buyer for e-signing. Buyer e-signs, then the selling qualifying broker e-signs. So in order for a contract to be sent out for DocuSign, the agent must upload all items in their checklist for approval within 48 hours of bid acceptance. These include proof of funds or pre-qual letter, EMD receipt confirmation form, and broker designated signer form if applicable. The listing broker will provide the buyer's agent with the EMD receipt confirmation page upon receipt of the EMD. After your bid is accepted, this is where you'll go for accepted bids. Reviewing a contract package. Once A-Team is able to generate the e-signature envelope, the agent who placed the bid on HUD Home Store will receive an email via DocuSign to review the contract package before signatures are requested. All the agent's doing is reviewing for accuracy, okay? Once they click finish and confirm that the package is ready for signature, the emails are sent to the parties that need to sign in the following order: the broker, designated signer, buyers, simultaneous at multiple buyers, the buyer's escrow, and then A-Team Realty. Do not forward the contract for signature via email. The system does it automatically. Contract execution. Once A-Team Realty has signed the contract and executed the file, all parties who signed the package will receive another email with a copy of the fully executed package. Corrections. 1 business day is allowed to return a corrected contract. Contract will be canceled or awarded to the next highest bidder if the contract is returned still containing errors. Submitting amendments. Contract corrections, revisions, and amendments can be submitted by email. Various amendments can be found under resources on the A-Team Realty Inc. website. Amendments are not valid unless approved in writing by both seller and purchaser. Only A-Team is able to modify the terms of the contract and process any changes to the contract. Amendments may take up to 72 hours, so don't wait till the last minute, please. Amendments will not be executed the day of closing, and failure to follow the above mentioned rules may result in a delay or rescheduled closing. Okay, I'm going to turn this over to Justin to pick it up from here.
Thank you, Mike, for the introduction as we transition over to the exciting part, right? And at least for my portion, I call it the exciting part because it's under contract. You've got the property in escrow, your buyers are excited, everyone's fired up. And so as we go through here, you're going to learn some ways that you can navigate through the escrow process, but also beyond that, we're going to take you and share how you can actually leverage the HUD Home properties to grow your business, and also take you directly online to actually walk you through the website and submitting a bid process and looking at addendums, etc. So as a reminder, home inspections, they are great for the consumer, and HUD stands with that premise. So they encourage all purchasers to use or to obtain a home inspection, whether you're an investor or an owner occupant. But by far, if you are an owner occupant, they want to stress the importance of having a professional home inspection done. There are some nuances that are a little bit different with HUD Homes versus a traditional sale. A traditional sale, you'll have a seller that will have their utilities on. In these situations, the properties are not occupied, and so your buyer will actually have to turn on the utilities. There's a process with that, so they're going to have to go to the field service manager, also known as FSM. They'll go ahead and submit a form along with typically a deposit, and they'll ask for approval to turn on utilities for that property. Once they're given approval, the buyer can go ahead and see through the process of having the utilities turned on. Now, the utilities should only be on for a very short window. We're talking 1, 2, maybe 3 days if you're pushing it. And that's to allow two things to happen. One, you want your home inspector to come through with the buyer, take a look at the property, get a really good handle on what the condition is of the property as a whole. And then two, you want to have the appraiser come in to do their walkthrough and appraisal on that property. Specifically, you want to make sure that once you're done with that process, that you turn the utilities off. So nothing good comes from having a property sit vacant with utilities on. We've seen situations where buyers thought, hey, we'll just leave the utilities on. We're going to close in 2 weeks. It'll be fine. A squatter comes in, takes possession of the property, has the utilities on, transfers those to their name, and all of a sudden now you're dealing with a unlawful detainer action versus just a sale of the property. In those situations, HUD would go ahead and cancel the escrow, have to obtain possession again, and then most likely the property would not end up selling to your buyer. So make sure that the buyer does turn off the utilities after they're done with their inspections. So FSM inspection request forms, that's available on hudhomestore.gov. I'll show you where you can locate the FSM information. There's an original utility request form as well that can be sent to the FSM, and the purchaser inspection may not be done until it's signed by the field service manager. As a reminder, again, it is the buyer's responsibility to go ahead and establish utilities at the property. A team will not do it. The local listing broker is not going to do it, and the FSM will not activate the utilities. That will fall upon the buyer to do so. So termite letters, if that's required based on the state or the zone you're located in, or specifically if you're getting FHA financing, HUD will do treatment for wood destroying pest. In those situations, buyer, you can have the inspection performed at any time at your own cost. And you'll be responsible for treatment if you're not utilizing FHA financing. So if there is FHA financing, they will cure up to, I think it's $4,000 in that remediation. But if it's traditional or like conventional financing, the buyer will have to handle the remediation cost on their own. Mike had mentioned do not do any repairs to the property. So I've seen situations on other local listing brokers properties where the buyer somehow gained access, maybe through their agent or another means, determined that the appraiser said, oh, well, we need a new range or we need HVAC. And so the buyer went and had this done. Because there were changes done to the property, the contract got canceled. And guess what? Not only does the buyer not get reimbursed for those, they don't get to close on the property. So as a reminder, precaution, please share the importance that your buyer do not do any repairs to the property until after the close of escrow. So the closing process, it's a little bit different than your standard traditional sale that you guys would all be accustomed to. The timelines are a little bit more gracious, right? So if you're going to utilize all cash, you're going to be an investor, they'll give you up to 30 days to close escrow. If you're utilizing FHA financing, they'll give you 45 days. And then if you're utilizing rehab or 203K financing, they're going to give you a 60-day escrow. Now, key reminder here is that there's a process that takes some time in order to get an extension put into place. So if you believe that your buyer is not going to close on time, make sure that you submit the proper paperwork, and I'll show you where you guys can go to get that online, and that you get it to A-Team at least 5 days prior to the close of escrow, because that's got to go to them. They have to execute the document. Additionally, there's a fee, right? And so in California, most of your properties will be over the $50,000 property sales cost. They're issued in 15-day increments, so it'll be 375 days or $375. And any funds that are not used will actually be returned back to the buyer on their closing statement and at closing. So part of the process to have your extension processed is your buyer's going to have to obtain certified funds. Once again, cashier's check, money order. You're going to send it into HUD. Their address is on this, or into A-Team. Their address is on the screen. It's the 739 Washington Avenue in Homestead, Florida. They'll make it payable to HUD. And you'll have to provide, including supporting documentation, either from the lender or whatever is the reason why you're extending and why you did not close on time. Now, if you are a owner occupant, right, there are certain situations where they're going to extend you one extension without a fee. That's a way of providing some additional lenience to understand that sometimes things don't go as planned. And so you'll be given typically an extension for free where they don't have to put in the fee. And then 2 free extensions on a 203K loan. But if you are a investor, they believe that 30 days is more than enough time for your investor to close on that transaction. And so in that scenario, they would have to pay that $375 extension fee. Key reminder, you'll see at the bottom of the screen, it's in bold. HUD will not reimburse for lock rates. So if your buyer is seeing a shift in the market, just be cautious about recommending them locking their rate, because if there's a rate lock that is required or there's delays, HUD's not going to reimburse for that rate lock. So just like a standard transaction, there's certain things that we recommend. Final walkthrough to confirm the property condition is critical, not just on a HUD home, but any sale, right, that your buyer is going to close on. And so prior to doing that, I would reach out to the local listing broker a few days in advance. Let them know that you and your buyer are going to take a final walkthrough of the property, just to assure that the property is in the same condition as when you submitted the bid on HUD Home Store. Your local listing broker will be able to confirm with you that there is a lockbox still at the property, the key is in the cradle, and you should have no problem gaining access. If for some reason you are walking through the property and you notice that there's vandalism or something's broken or there's graffiti, that will signal a red flag that you should contact the local listing broker and A-Team, who's the asset manager. We will get the FSM out to the property immediately and see what can be done about what issues have occurred. Most likely in those situations, the closing will be postponed and allow HUD the time to work through whatever items they have to with the issue that arose. In that situation, the extension fee would be waived on your transaction. So great news. You saw it through the escrow process. You had your inspection, you had your appraisal, loan funded, and we closed. Well, these properties are on a national key system. What does that mean to you and to your buyer is that when the local listing broker, they're going to meet you at the property or one of their staff on the day of closing. They're going to unlock their doors. And I've had situations where buyer's agents weren't going through the training like you guys are today, and they wanted the key, right? They're like, okay, great, the door's open. Can you give us a key so that we can give it to the client? Unfortunately, we cannot. And there's a multitude of reasons why. A lot of vendors and beyond have keys to these properties. B, we want to assure that your buyer is safe in taking possession of the property. So one best practice that I see done by buyer's agents is they'll pay for a locksmith. On the day of closing, they'll meet the local listing broker at the property. Local listing broker will unlock all the doors. as a gift to the buyer. They will go ahead and have the locksmith rekey all the doors and locks, and then they'll give the buyers a brand new set of keys. That way they know the property is secure, no one's got additional access to the property, and they can move forward with their new home. Now, there are some huge advantages of working with HUD Homes. In today's environment, I'm sure this is not uncommon with those on today's call, where individuals are looking for ways to increase their business, right? How can I obtain more buyers that I can work with? How can I pick up more listings or sellers in a marketplace? So great thing about HUD Homes, you can advertise them. You don't need to go to the local listing broker to get approval. All HUD Homes can be advertised by all agents. However, there are some key caveats that you want to make sure that you comply with. First of all, you want to make sure that you're doing it in a professional and ethical manner. In doing that, you want to assure that the property is being featured in a positive light. So it's referred to as HUD owned, and HUD acquired. You don't want to use any negative connotations when describing these. So like saying REO or foreclosed, that would be unacceptable, right? So in addition to that, you want to include the equal housing logo on all marketing pieces, whether it be website, flyers, your website, when you're advertising HUD Homes. And then specifically, there are some nuances when it comes to the properties, whether it's in a floodplain zone or not, or maybe lead-based paint applies because it was built prior to 1978. So anything that's specific on HUD Home Store, you're going to want to make sure that you share that in your advertising. And then also make sure that you comply with any truth in lending requirements for advertising. And then, of course, the most important thing, when you show a HUD home, make sure that you put that key back in the cradle, put it back in the Supra, and that all doors and windows are locked and secure prior to you leaving. So we're going to go online. I'm going to show you where you can get a lot of the information that we just talked about. I'm going to drop this in the chat for you as well. So this is A-Team's website. I just put it in the chat for all of you, ateamrealtyinc.com. Here we have HUD forms, right? So we can see there's general addendums, right? If your buyer is going to change their financing, you can find that addendum here. Perhaps one buyer was going to buy the property and decided, oh, you know what, they're going to have a co-signer or another person is going to come on the property. There's an purchaser addendum. If you're changing anything or correcting a purchaser, there's a modified purchaser addendum. Or maybe a purchaser is going to come off, so there'll be a remove purchaser addendum. And then lastly, if a purchaser is using an EIN or social security number, they need to modify that on the forms. They could use that here. So these addendums are here available for your convenience. I'd use that as a resource. And then the main website where you can find the properties is going to be hudhomestore.gov. So a critical item in order to get set to be able to bid on HUD Homes on behalf of your clients is to make sure that you can register on the system. So the system was updated not too long ago. I think it was the end of last year, where there is a two-step process for agents to actually create an account on HUD Home Store. First of all, your broker needs to make sure they have what's known as an NAID number. So up here at the top, NAID portal. You will not have to do this, but your broker will if they're not. You could just text your broker, email them, ask them, hey, do you have a HUD NAID number? They should be able to provide that to you if there is one in place. And so if you want to check on the status of that NAID that they give you, you would just go to NAID portal, click here to go to the NAID portal. It will open up this screen. There is check NAID recertification and license expiration. If you would just want to confirm that it's in good standing. So I'm just going to drop in my NAID. I'll click on submit. I can see it's tied to the broker license and it doesn't expire until or it doesn't expire until the December of this year. So we're good. It's a good standing. Agents can submit a bid on HUD Home Store underneath our broker's name. If it was expired, you would just have to contact your broker, and then they could update that on their end. So the website, navigating it, it's pretty intuitive, right? So as you scroll down, there's some links here over the map. The map has two different colors associated with it. Gray, not so good. Think of a gray sky. Blue, light blue, very good, like a clear sky, right? Clear sky or light blue means that you have inventory in that state. Gray means that there is no inventory. So I've seen agents where they actually do seminars, campaigns, where they actually drive buyer educational events in their community around the Good Neighbor Next Door program. And so that being said, it is a great opportunity. It's geared towards law enforcement, firefighters, teachers, EMTs. The nice thing is if you forget, you know, who can participate, they've got a little notation here to remind you at the top. And then the key with this is they get to buy a property at 50% of the value, as long as they stay in the property for 3 years. Now, what if the buyer has to move in 2 years? They don't have to repay the full amount of the 50% discount. It's prorated. So the longer they're in that property for 36 months, then they're closer to getting forgiven that full 50%. So I just clicked on Arizona where we saw there was a property. You can see from before when we were on the map, a lot of gray area, but maybe you know somebody in Arizona who's a teacher, and they happen to be in the Tucson area. You might want to recommend that they take a look at this program. So literally they could pick this up for, what is that, 77,200 or $77,500. Pretty incredible. And then they would be forgiven the other half of the property as long as they were in the property for 3 years. So it's unique. It really is like a lottery process. So those that are interested, you can't bid over the amount. Your commission would have to be paid outside or directly from the buyer underneath your buyer broker agreement. And then it really is a drawing. The asset management company will pull based on those that have submitted bids, and the individual that is drawn will be the one that'll be awarded the opportunity to close on the property. So really exciting program. There are other incentives that they run from time to time. Good Neighbor Next Door by far is probably the best well-known opportunity they provide for those different specialty careers. Now on the traditional site, this map is interactive, right? So I can just hover my mouse over the different states. Some of you might be multi-licensed, or maybe you have colleagues in other states. We can see that in California, there's currently 83 properties. So if we click on the state, it's going to open up a window with a couple different options. There are panels or tiles on the left-hand side, which will give you a look at a property. And then there's dots on the right-hand side. So it's up to you how you want to navigate it. I love the interactive map because I can really drill down and look in an area that I'm located in. So maybe you're interested in Pasadena, right? I can zoom in. I can see there's stuff out in San Bernardino, Riverside, Hemet, Paris, Pomona. So here's this one on Los Robles. We can see up here, it's on the left, right? It's extended. Now, these are the different types of bidders that can bid on it. Extended or exclusive. And if you forget, it's okay. So if you're with your buyer, just click on the little I, and we can see all bidders pops up next to it. And then this one on exclusive, it's only available to owner occupants, nonprofits, and government agencies. And so this means that you're only going to be competing with those individuals, whereas with the extended, you're going to be competing with everybody. But your buyers absolutely fall in love with the property or ask you about it. So it's interactive, right? So you're going to have marketing photos that'll give you an idea of what the property looks like. I do recommend that you have your consumer or the buyer look through the property photos so they kind of have an idea of what the condition is before they step into it. This property looks like it's in fantastic condition. Whereas we can look at other properties and they may not be in the same condition. So I talked about marketing and advertising. So one thing I am seeing is agents will click on print flyer. And when they go to print it, they'll add their business card down at the bottom. Like you can see on the screen, there's an opening. They'll either create a banner or they'll put their business card down there. And when a property comes out on the market, immediately within a week, they're out, they're door knocking the neighborhood. They're telling the neighbors about this new property that hit the market, that it's a HUD home, see if they know of anyone that might be interested in moving into the area. And then also maybe they've considered about selling, or maybe they want to take advantage of the market as well. So there's some benefits there that if you don't have a ton of inventory or business going today, you can leverage this inventory to grow your business. And so as we scroll down, we'll see at the very top, there's some basic property information. We can see that it's a single family home. It's one story, was built in 1906. So we know right off the bat, right? What applies in these situations? Lead-based paint. It was built prior to 1978. We can see there's 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. It's got 1,876 square feet of living space. There's 8 rooms. It's on a large lot, right? 8,754 square foot lot. And there's no HOA. Below that, there's some items that would typically impact a buyer if they did apply, right? Usually it's attributed to additional costs in order for that condition to exist. So it's not in a revitalization area. It's not in a national registry or historic district or opportunity zone. It's not in a flood zone or an airport zone. So we can scroll down and see that the property is uninsured, which means typical FHA financing will not work on this property. But guess what? There's a great little green box with a check. It is eligible for 203K. So there's some findings that we're going to get into here in a second that will help us understand why does it have to go 203K. Amenities, there's a fireplace, outside amenities, patio deck and fence. There's a 2-car garage. It is on there's a crawl space. So it's not on a slab foundation, it's on a raised foundation. And then there's addendums, right? So this before you bid, this is something that all of you should review. It's a great refresher before you go and discuss the process with your buyers. So it's addressed to you, but you can send it to the buyer as well. There's only a 2-day window. If your bid is approved and selected to move forward, there's only a 2-day window for you to complete your offer bid checklist, which includes confirming the purchaser. Your buyer will have to go and obtain certified funds from their bank and deliver it to the local listing broker. The local listing broker will give you a receipt. You're going to actually have to upload that into the task on HUD's website. You'll have to make sure that you have a buyer's closing company that is familiar with the HUD process. If not, they will have to get registered, right? So they're going to need a valid state license. They're going to need a closing protection letter or errors and omissions to in order to handle that or be a closing company for HUD. We can see here there's a reminder about the EMD. Once again, properties over 250,000, it's going to be $2,000. And then if it's financing, you want to make sure that that pre-qual is up to date. So it's got to be within the last 30 days. And then if there's an EIN being used, it'll be required for any purchase entity. So you'll need that EIN letter from the IRS. So the next one underneath that, lead-based paint. This is nothing that's new to all of you. You are experienced. You know that properties built prior to 1978, lead-based paint is used. So unlike traditional transactions in zip forms, HUD has its own lead-based paint, very identical when it comes to the message that it's relaying to the consumer, provides the lead-based paint warning, provides the same stipulation that the buyer has a 15-day calendar window to do their home inspection around lead-based paint. I think the actual LBP is a 10-day inspection window, but with HUD, you have 15 days. You indicate which financing, right? So they'll do remediation up to $4,000 on lead-based paint if you're using FHA financing. So you might think, oh, geez, Justin, we're going to use the 203K on this because that's eligible. Well, it is, but if you're doing a rehab loan, then it will not do the remediation because they would expect the consumer to do that if they were going to do any kind of upgrades or work on the property. So as you can see under this, properties being sold subject to an FHA insured financing under any program other than, oh, it'd be this one, sorry. Because the other one would just be a standard FHA financing, which will allow for that remediation. So no FHA financing for property constructed prior to 1978, or any FHA financing except 203K, which is where they will not provide that remediation. Now, it's up to $4,000, and there's a couple situations where your buyer could be held responsible for that remediation. So let's just say that it is the full amount to cure the lead-based paint. There's a couple options available, right? If the buyer was using FHA financing and then they switch to conventional, they could be held responsible for that cost. And so they would have to reimburse HUD for whatever remediation they did. Or if they went from FHA financing and then they switched to a 203K loan or conventional, they could also be responsible for the remediation cost as well. So that's outlined here in the secondary paragraph as well. So pretty straightforward. Next, we have the property listing disclosure. General disclosures around the purchase process. Some are specific to the property and some are just broad in nature around the sales process. So at the top, MPR, minimum property repairs. So we can see there's some issue with the foundation. And there's the issue with the roof. And some wood damage, right? So things that would impact health and safety, that's why it's uninsurable. And then there's some general property disclosures they provide you. Property is located in a FEMA special flood hazard or is not located in a special flood hazard area. It doesn't have an HOA. It is subject to lead-based paint. It's a reminder it's sold as is. Also states that if there is any personal property at the subject, when you submit your bid, that you might expect to, that it'll be there at time of closing. And if so, you'll be responsible for disposing of that personal property. There's a possibility of a UCC lien, so like pertaining to solar, attached to the property and which will need to be addressed by the purchasers after closing at your expense. So if there is a UCC lien and there's solar, you're going to have to deal with that after close of escrow. And so if you see solar panels on a HUD home, it should be a red flag. They recommend that you get a foundation inspection, and that it is uninsurable because of the foundation. We saw the photos, looked beautiful. I knew something had to be going on with it, and there it is. It's the foundation. There's general disclosures below that. Reiteration that properties built prior to 1978 are subject to lead-based paint. Properties being purchased with FHA financing, they'll do termite inspection and possible treatment. But if you switch financing, you can be responsible for the cost that they spent to cure and for the inspection. And then also that you have to get permission to turn on utilities before you turn on the utilities. Now here, it's not by coincidence the only area on the entire property disclosure form that has red font is here. For your protection, get a home inspection. So I know as professionals, we recommend to our clients the importance of getting a home inspection. Our recommendation to you is to hire a professional that's experienced in that. We don't recommend foregoing somebody that happens to work in construction Maybe they have an uncle that's a contractor. Like you really want them to invest in that full report to really understand every nuance of the property by hiring a home inspector. There's an environmental compliance record. This is a reiteration of what was shared in the top of the screen, right? So it's not in a national register for historic places. It's not located in a historical district area. And you might say, well, geez, Justin, why does that matter? Well, guess what? If it is an historic area, usually the homes are well preserved. But also, when you want to do upgrades, you're typically limited to either certain ways of upgrading or the quality of material that you upgrade. All of which usually tie back to historic times, right? Might be built in the 1920s. And so the cost to have the work done at that quality is usually more expensive. It's not in a floodplain. That's pretty obvious. If it was, the property could be subject to floods, which would mean the buyer would have to do some work. And then the airport one-way clear zone, of course, that would impact the buyer's enjoyment because they would hear airplanes flying over their home. And hey, it's okay to be located underneath the airport fly zone. It's just you want to be aware of it so that the consumer buying it goes in with their eyes wide open. And then the last one is a property condition report. So HUD does have the property inspected. They actually have a contractor go out and take a look at it. Um, and it's very surface level, meaning we can see the condition of each of the systems, their functionality, and how they tested it. So cooling and AC is okay, electrical is okay, stove and range, plumbing, water heater, septic, roof. So everything's okay except for that roof. Guess what? It's damaged. Guess what? It has a leak. It must have been visible. So that's a health and safety issue. That's another reason why financing won't work. And then we can see how they tested it. Electricity was on. The plumbing, the water was on. The water heater, they visually inspected it. So we know from our experience in the industry that a home inspection is way more involved than just one page, right? I've seen them be as much as 350 pages. So your buyer really is well positioned by obtaining a true home inspection. And then below that, we've got the asset manager. That's a team. Their contact information is here. You'll see the listing broker below that. This one is Matthias, and then the field service manager as well. So you walk through this and your client says, you know what, Mike, I absolutely love this. They've done a lot of work and yeah, I might need some foundation, but I think we can get the foundation supported and braced with a 203K loan. And so you talk to a contractor or the buyer talks to a contractor, they think that can happen. And so they decide to move forward. So the first time that you go to become a bidder as an agent for your client, I mentioned there's a two-step process. First of all, your broker needs to make sure they have an NAID number. If they do, then you need to ask them to add you to Yardi. The broker controls adding agents into the system. Once you are added, you will complete the second portion. You'll get an email, you'll click through to confirm your email address, then you'll go to register bidder. So this is just one time. You're going to do set up Yardi 1 as a bidder once your broker's added you. You'll complete that process. You're going to end up putting your cell phone number in there as one of your contacts. That's critical because then once you do that, you'll log out and then you'll do the same process again, but you'll do sign in with Yardi 1. And that's going to get you to the system so that you are good to go and can access the system on your own. I am already registered, so I would just click sign in. I'm a bidder user, not a public user. Agents have to use you as has to use an agent. They can't go direct to HUD. Also, they can search, right? So we can see this one is in Pasadena. Here's a zip code. So they can literally go to find an agent, put in the zip code. So right now in Pasadena, only one is coming up. Can you believe that? Now, if I did Long Beach, we see a lot more, right? Build a home. So I do encourage you to maybe take a look at your zip code, see how many brokers are found. You want to make sure that this is up to date because it'll allow you to submit bids for HUD Homes. So sign in as bidders. You guys can pick up clients from the actual HUD website. You'll input your username. And then your password. And then you're going to get sent a text. And this you will need to put it in so that you can log in. So now we're logged in. I can see why, because it has my initials in the top right-hand corner. So if I go back to home over here, we can go back to California. I recommend that you do this with your clients in the office or maybe at their place, or if you have another place that you meet, versus doing it over the phone. So don't put together a purchase agreement. It will not be used. You will need to submit a bid. This is the only way to submit an offer for HUD Homes. So I recommend you sit down with them. You pull up your laptop, you log in. You would just simply click on submit bid. You want to confirm, okay, that's the property ad or the property price they're asking, case number matches, address matches, and it's on a daily basis. So it's going to, bids will continue to go until 8:44 or 8 hours and 44 minutes. This is Central Time, right? So it's not 11:59 Pacific Time, although on the website it'll say it's due 11:59, but it's Central Time. So I believe that's 9:59. They're 2 hours ahead. Right here where it says daily. Oh, here we go. So you'll confirm that you are not a robot. So we're going to submit a bid for your clients. Everything that drives HUD's decision is the net to HUD. So this is not like your standard RPA, right? It has only a couple questions you answer. Literally, they collect the bid information, then they collect the purchaser information, and then the closing company. And then you submit. So we're not going to submit this, but we'll take you all the way through steps 1, 2, and 3. You are going to be amazed at how easy this is, right? There is some red up here at the top, so you want to make sure that you review that. If this bid is awarded, you are responsible for reviewing the bid information and submitting required documentation within the accepted bid checklist in HUD Home Store within 2 business days of bid award notification. So if you're going out of town, could be problematic. Additionally, if your broker is not involved, like I handle all signings for our team because I'm very involved, but your broker might have a manager handling this, or they might want you to handle the signing and whatnot. So you're going to have to make sure that you get the authorization letter, which I'm going to show you in a second, if that is the case. So your buyer falls in love with it, but maybe they want to save a little bit on the purchase price. It's been on the market for a while, so maybe you offer 950,000. They're going to use a 203K loan. And then the seller will pay up to 3% towards closing cost. Now it's a use it or lose it thing. So it's not, oh, we can ask for it now, but or maybe we can ask for it later. No, it's got to be a now thing at the time of the bid. So maybe they don't need 28,500 in closing costs. That's a lot, but maybe they could use 15,000, right? towards reoccurring and non-reoccurring closing costs, talk to your escrow provider, get an estimate, and then talk with your buyer and see what they can afford financially. Additionally, selling broker, whatever your BRBC is, your broker compensation, you would just enter that amount in here. HUD will pay up to 3% of closing cost. Now, so you put in your closing costs, you've got your compensation in here. Line 7, Mike mentioned to you, line 7's where what it's all about. That is the number that HUD uses to identify whose bid will be accepted. Now we can see this is at 878. But let's say that maybe the compensation that you're asking for is that went from 878 to 886. Maybe your buyer has the closing cost. Oh, look at that. Now it's 901, right? So how you change these items will impact the buyer's ability to obtain the property from HUD standpoint. Now you're wondering, well, Justin, what if there's two offers that are the same amount? So I do recommend sharing with the buyer the importance of moving with or being not to be hesitant on submitting a bid, specifically because to that point, if it's over a weekend, for example, you go through and you look on a Saturday, they fall in love with it, and it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and say, well, hey, let's go ahead and fill this out. We'll get a bid in for you. We'll get it off. And they say, no, we want to think about it. Like, okay. They get back with you on Sunday at 5 o'clock, and you guys are just really rushed to try to get it in before the deadline. Whereas Mike went by, actually was there the same time you guys were, but then his client's like, yeah, let's go write it up real quick. So Mike goes and writes it up Saturday at 1:30. If the offers are exactly the same amount, A team's going to go based on the time it was submitted. So guess what? Mike, whose clients decided to write quicker, will be rewarded for them putting it into writing and getting it submitted versus delaying it. They'll have to make some declarations, right? There's an owner, this is for an owner occupant. And then can they hold the offer as backup? So they're then going to gain information about the buyer. Specifically, there's declarations that are made. The HUD homes, they cannot be sold to anyone in the disposition chain. So they can't be sold to the asset manager or anyone connected to their immediate family. They can't be connected to anyone that's works for the field service managers, the appraisers, even the local listing broker. So not only can I not purchase it, buyer who's related to me cannot purchase it, or an agent that works for me, their family can't purchase it either. So just make sure it's arm's length. Otherwise, they cannot continue with the sale. And it's not a selling broker or agent buying the property. So the reason I recommend you doing this with your client in person is because they have to provide their social security number. So they'll input this number. And then their name, right? John Smith. And if it's a couple that's purchasing, a husband and a wife, make sure that they both have their own email address. This is critical because they both have to sign electronically for their portion of the contract. They can't use the same email address for two people. And of course, phone number. And then the next page is the closing company. So the buyer gets to choose on this. You can identify right away whether or not that company's done business with them. Because if I put in, okay, no Villa, we've done escrow. We have an escrow company. So I could see they're already in the system, right? And then the escrow officer, I have my choice of, right? And then a backup escrow officer. So anyone that you are working with, you can select who you want to work at escrow. All right, so there's a lot of different options. It'll be up to your buyer. I would recommend they get quotes to get an idea of what the closing costs look like for their end. And then you would go ahead and submit, and we'd be good to go. So we're not going to submit. So I'm just going to go ahead and back out from this bid. You can track your bids here at the top. And that is, I think, everything in a nutshell. So we have kind of an open Q&A to see what kind of additional questions you guys might have. Let's see, Alfonso, I think you asked, is it being recorded? It is. I would just connect with Tri-Counties. They can provide you a copy of the recording as well. Any other questions about HUD Homes, the process, how you can leverage this to grow your business?
Show them where print a flyer, look, Justin.
What's that? What was that, Mike?
A flyer. Show them how they could print a flyer. Easy.
Oh, I did, but I can definitely go over it. So right here, when you go to the property, right? So when we first started this, I was walking you guys through, you can click on the print property flyer, right? And so what we're seeing a lot of people do is they'll add their information at the bottom. Now you can put this into your own software, right? You can utilize your own software to create a flyer, but if you want a quick and easy way, you can literally put your business card here at the bottom and then print, and you'd be good to go. Perfect. Anything else you wanted to add to that?
No, not on my end. Is there any questions? Anybody have any questions whatsoever? Well, maybe we'll catch you next year with pizza.
I like that idea. So we'll give you guys a little bit more time back in your day. I'm going to drop our information into the chat. Should you guys have any questions, we're here as resources. So one thing that HUD does want to see is see us assist agents just like you with any questions you have in the process. So if you do, feel free to reach out to either myself or Mike, and we're happy to help any way we can. Thank you, Catherine. Appreciate it. All right. Well, with that, I wish you guys an amazing afternoon. Thank you for chiming in, and we wish you guys much success as we wrap up 2025.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.